Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest, Tambry Harris. And she's here today to share with us her new book, Awakening the Light, a survivors to thrivers going forward story. So have you gone through loss or abuse and you're just tired of living the same story? Today, Tambry is going to walk us through stages of evolution, awakening, and eventually thriving in a healing journey through trauma. Now, Tambry has a master's degree in applied psychology and certifications in the areas of leadership coaching, spiritual direction, change management, and diversity. Through her organization, Going Forward, Survivors to Thrivers, she provides individual guidance, retreats, and speaking engagements to bring awareness and light into the shame, silence, and darkness of sexual abuse. So let's welcome to the show, Tambry Harris.
Thank you so much for having me.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. And I just have to ask, what inspired you to write it?
It actually goes back 3 years when the hashtag #MeTooHands started going up. And I'm a kindred spirit with that. And I really wanted to do something to help other survivors who may find themselves stuck in a place of being a survivor and encouraging them to move to thriving. And so that's what this book is about. This book is about looking at whatever may be a source of trauma and pain for you, and helping you kind of stair-step and walk through healing. And I share my story to help encourage and help you feel that kindred spirit as you're taking those healing steps for yourself.
Yes, your story was very honest. You were very vulnerable with it. There was a lot that you shared. And I think a lot of people can draw parallels to their own lives with it.
That is so true. And that was my intent. I think that to be vulnerable, it's helpful to have someone be vulnerable with you. And that's why I felt like I needed to share different aspects of my story. And my story is one actually of having suppressed the trauma for years, and then my body actually speaking to me and helping me begin to understand what really had happened to me and how that had really created these limiting beliefs and unhealthy patterns. And so, to your point, it doesn't have to be that your story is exactly mine, but in reading it, it helps you understand perhaps some of those things you have experienced and haven't really understood completely. And hopefully encourages people to really have a sense that it is possible. It is possible to work through these things, and it's a journey, but it's a very doable one.
So what are some of the dynamics that surround not just sexual abuse, but just trauma altogether?
Absolutely. Depending upon when it happens, that can affect us in different ways. But so many times, victims are we often blame or shame the victim. And so people are stuck with this sense of shame. And I really love all the work that Brene Brown has done around vulnerability and shame, and trying to dispel some of those notions. And so we're often trapped with this sense of shame and self-blame, and that keeps us trapped. I think the other thing is that we often have a sense that it has something to do with us. And so that's where the limiting beliefs come from. And so for me, a limiting belief was, I am not worthy. And part of that was due to the fact that no one intervened. My sexual abuse started as a child. And so the sense that I am not worthy of being seen, I am not worthy of having intervention. And that then led me to certain types of behaviors that did not work for me. I ended up accepting whatever love came to me, thinking that I may not deserve the best. And that led me into a domestically violent marriage. And so that's why it's just so important, if you have experienced trauma and abuse, to work through these things so that you don't find yourself stuck in unhealthy patterns like I did.
So, how do people identify that they have limiting beliefs when they might not even be aware of them?
hmm I talk a lot about mind, body, spirit, and the importance of really listening to that. I think that our minds can overtake and kind of rule for us. And if we have had any kind of violence to our bodies, I know that I kind of cut my head, myself off from my neck down and didn't really pay attention to it. And until my body kind of screamed out loudly and said, you've got to pay attention. And so I think one thing is really, if your body is telling you something, if you're wondering about what that churn is in your stomach, if you're wondering about the spinning thoughts or the headaches or the body aches, being curious around what might that be about is important. There's also listening to those tapes that you might have in your head, those unhealthy thoughts, and they typically are negative. They are, saying things like, another one of mine was stay small. And so, the actual me putting my voice out and putting my story in print actually was a huge step of overcoming that limiting belief of I need to stay small. And so as you have these thoughts that might be limiting you, things that kind of just haunt you, really look at them and say, is that true? And what is that about? Because for the most part, I read one book and it said, this is your intern or inner roommate. And if your roommate actually said these things to you, you would tell them to get out. And so, if you have this internal dialogue that's not helpful, or if you find yourself in these unhealthy patterns of choosing relationships that are not good for you, then that's a good time to really slow down and say, let me take some time to invest in myself, because you are worth it. You are worth that time and that reflection.
That's such a great thing to kind of pay attention to, because when you look at it, I mean, you often hear, of people that go through one bad relationship after another.
Yes.
And you're just like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
You often explain it away. I know I would always try and help the other person. And so I thought, well, I can help him through the pain that he's experienced in the past, or this isn't really as bad as it may seem on the surface. I would explain away all these things, but in reality, I was stuck in this state of they were reinforcing some of those mind messages that I already had. And so they were familiar, but they were not healthy. And again, my body would often tell me, sometimes I would just find myself sighing deeply. And it was almost like oh gosh, a very sad kind of sigh. And that was another way of me just suppressing action and not moving forward, because I had not broken through and I had not looked at what was really under the surface.
Well, and it's good to have these indicators so you can look at it, go, okay, there's something here I really need to pay attention to.
Absolutely. And if you have close friends, sometimes it's helpful, people that you can trust, for them to speak into your life. And they may be able to name some of those things. And I know I had people that said something and I didn't listen well enough. I kind of just shrugged off some of those things. And so I think also really thinking about who are the supporters in your life, and, are they giving you information that you may not be giving enough credence to?
So I know in your book, you talk about how our patterns can be so deeply ingrained. So how can we take steps to alter this path?
That's a great question. And, you can think about how a stream has worn, wears its way down into the soil. And so it takes some intentionality to redirect the stream, and our thoughts and our pathways are the same. And so part of it is, sometimes it can be just even affirmations for yourself. So I am not worthy. Inherently we know that's not true. And so beginning to claim, I am worthy. And as you think about, in situations where you have that unworthy thought come up and you challenge it and say, no, my truth is that I am worthy, then what you can do from there is then it begins to allow you to access, if I am worthy, then I am inherently good and I can be my authentic self and I can live in a life. And so each of those steps that you begin to claim for yourself further creates that new way of thinking, that new pattern of thinking. I'm also a big believer in breath. And so really beginning to just take a breath, a deep breath, and allow yourself, before you go into some of those negative thought patterns, take a breath and think about what might be a different way to think about this or take this in, or what might a different action be or a different response, even either to how you're treating yourself or how you're engaging others. Because I think if I were more mindful previously, I would have seen some of the indicators and I could have chosen to respond differently and had different outcomes.
Those are great tips for people to kind of pay attention to that inner dialogue and what's going on, because it's so often that when someone goes through, any type of abuse or trauma, the number one thing they think about is that they're not worthy of having like a good relationship or of anything.
That is so true. And I work with so many people that is a theme. It is absolutely a theme. And what's also sad is sometimes you have people in your midst that reinforce that. So people that are part of the system. And so it's important to begin to find your own voice. I find journaling being really helpful because that way you can begin to write even those things you're curious about or those thoughts that are starting to evolve for you and getting them down so you can go back and look at it, but also looking at who am I allowing in my life that can maybe work against. I know a lot of people have family members that could perhaps you're rewriting the narrative and so some people might be uncomfortable with the new narrative that you're writing because they were very comfortable with you being put in that path and that role that you've been in. And so beginning to claim your new story, which is what the book is all about, is beginning to look at yourself as the main character of your story and feeling the power of claiming that story. Surrounding yourself with other people who can help you continue to find your voice and claim those things that you really want for that full life. Because so many of us get trapped in just partial lives and staying stuck in that role that's been created for us.
I think, what you're talking about, and I'd love for you to expand on this because in your book, you talk about how it's the journey that people move from sexual abuse to, or domestic violence to being that victim to survivor. And, that path seems like it's just a really difficult path.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And what I would say is, victims, I really believe they do need to go to therapists to look back at the trauma that happened. There's a lot of different ways to go about healing that trauma and the traumatic memories. And what I find is that even when you do that, you can still be stuck in the survivor mode. And that's what I think is really what the book is about, is trying to help move from survivor mode, which is, it's you're living, there's going to be some good things, but you're holding yourself back from that full life. And so it really is taking the time to begin to examine. So the book is very much about peeling back the layers to understand your true essence, where your beauty lies, maybe some of the things that you don't even recognize in yourself. And then it's also about those things, and we examine some of the mindsets and where did they come from. So the book gives you specific questions to reflect on so that you can begin to name those mindsets and see those mindsets and recognize whether they were in your mind by someone or yourself. Like I said, for me, I don't believe that anybody said you're not worthy of intervention. But my little girl was sitting here in this horrible situation with a bunch of people around her and no one seemed to intervene. And so, so I created my own limiting mindsets. And so it does take a while to begin to look at those. And one of my favorite terms is be curious. And so in your curiosity, asking the question, where did that come from? Is that true? Is that helpful? And sitting in that. And so one of the things that with the book, it really allows you to go deep at your own pace. And so if there's something that you need to sit with for a while, you have that luxury, that you have the time and space to do that, and you have you're in the safety of your own home as you kind of examine these things. I have worked with people who, as we were working through, because I can also do this, I lead one-on-one coaching sessions, and I also lead retreats where others can hear. These are small groups, like maybe 3 or 4 people, because I want to keep it intimate and safe. But other people share their stories, and they find themselves in each other's stories, and so that also can provide some openings for people. But I've had people who, when I'm doing one-on-one, might need to stay in a space for a while and really understand that limiting belief, because it is so deep. And it actually happened to me. I had a friend who, years before I could actually claim it, really wanted to speak in my worthiness to me, but I had to do the work. You have to kind of take it from a conceptual mind place down into your heart and your spirit for you really to believe that. And sometimes that takes time. But by going through the exercises and doing the reflection, you begin to look at it in different angles, and that begins to really kind of seep into your deeper knowing of yourself.
Yeah, I love how your book has areas that are prompt for different exercises where people can do some journaling, do a little bit of soul searching, and dive, inward.
Thank you. That was my full intention. And if you had asked me, 3 years ago when it was put on my heart to do something, I would have never thought that I would be telling my story. And so in the telling of my story, the pure intent is to have the reader feel a kindred spirit and kind of walk with me along my path so that they can walk theirs. And that's why I wanted to really weave in those reflection questions from the very beginning as I'm expressing, the fact that my family story is one of a lot of trauma and tragedy. And I've had to kind of, go through years to recognize that's not everyone else's experience. But in reflecting on my family dynamics, it grows my awareness of why I am the way I am, why I think the way I think. And so as I'm describing my family dynamics, to have the reader reflect on, how did your family discuss trauma or death or difficulties, or if not, what did it look like? And so beginning to have opportunities to slowly dip toes into the curiosity around some of your foundational elements, and then going deeper over time as you kind of move through the book into some of the, maybe more difficult parts, because it certainly is difficult sometimes. I use the analogy of you've got to shed light, and that's the awakening the light. You have to shine light into the darkness to be able to allow that deep seed of beauty in yourself to grow. And so that was my intent, to kind of nurture and sprinkle in some water and some sunlight into the book as the readers are seeking to grow in their understanding of themselves, as well as in their claiming of their next chapters.
So for our listeners who are in that survivor mode, what does thriving mean and look like for them?
Mm-hmm. It looks like really being in touch with your authentic self, and being able to live from that grounded, knowing place. One of the things I talk about when I do my speaking engagements is I will talk about the fact that we've got this tip of the iceberg of, we can look fine above the surface of the water line, and we can, have the smile, we can be, working and operating within our families, but below the water line is all this angst. It's all this, it's these limiting beliefs, it's the stress, it's the lack of integrating your mind and body spirit, where you're constantly feeling kind of out of whack. And so as you work through this below the waterline part of the iceberg and really begin to understand it and begin to work through all those parts, in time, your below the waterline matches your above the waterline. So when someone asks you, how are you doing? And you say, I'm fine, you really mean it. And you have that ease in living because you know that you are honoring your full self, and you can, and the relationships in your life are ones that feed you, because you're no longer in those unhealthy patterns of, I'm not worthy, and so I'm going to take whatever kind of attention or relationship I can get. No, you are worthy of the best. And so when you get really positive people around you, then that just continues to feed you versus pulling you down into those unhealthy pieces that you once lived with.
When people move from that survivor mode into thriving, that a lot of the different relationships they have will either adjust or go away.
Yes. I think you begin to separate from, you begin to see them, and you can still see them, if there are people that are in your life that are going to remain in your life, you can see them and have a heart for them, but it doesn't affect you and your perception of yourself and what you're capable of. And I believe that you also will see people in your life that are not healthy for you, and you need to begin to. Another piece of work that I do with people is around boundaries, and really being able to claim your boundaries and recognize what's working for you and what's not. And so there may be some people in your life that you really do see that there's just not. It's not a healthy relationship to stay in. And in other relationships, you can then be able to say, I am worth these boundaries. And this is what healthy boundary setting looks like. And being able to really kind of, again, flourish where you are and not be bound by unhealthy, toxic people pulling you down.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when those people are family, it seems that there's a great hesitancy to draw boundaries, or maybe even move those relationships kind of out a little further, because they're thinking, oh, it's family, I have to stay in touch with them.
I use the word grounded a good bit with people, and I think about, so if you have done this work, you have a sense of groundedness. And again, it's a sense of groundedness in your body. It's a sense of groundedness in your mind. And so, and the breathing, again, is so helpful. And so, yes, so when you're engaging, and I think family is probably the hardest, because we've been developing these patterns, our whole life. And so a sense of, but this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to be. And if you feel yourself responding to those old dynamics that will continue to exist, because these people are who they are and they've got their own patterns established, but breathing and allowing yourself to kind of feel that stability and know that this is who I am. And we're gonna be in a different kind of dance now. I'm going to engage with them in a different way.
I really love how your book talks about how we develop these protective layers. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people have absolutely no idea how many protective layers they even have.
That's so true. And especially if they seemingly work for them. So my protective layers were I needed to prove my worth. And so proving my worth looked like, okay, I'm going to get the straight A's. I'm going to, get the degrees. I'm going to get the certifications. I'm going to excel in whatever job I'm in. And so again, that above the waterline looked like I was just fine. But the problem is that core beautiful part of my soul kept getting pushed down even more because all I was becoming was my accomplishments. You didn't really know me as much. You purely knew just all those things. And I talk about in the story that in my book, I was in a work situation. We were writing descriptors of one another, and most of my descriptors were things like professional. And I just that was a blind spot for me because I didn't recognize that I was putting off that all I was a very together professional, because there's so much more to me. And so I think sometimes, and that's when I mentioned, people who you can trust, who love you, if they can speak into you, if you open yourself up for them to speak into you, you might learn some things that are helpful for you to begin to see what those layers are that you develop to. So another way of saying it for me was I was also a perfectionist. And I think a lot of people there were things in your life that you couldn't control. So I'm going to control what I can. And that then leads to the perfectionist tendencies. And so that's another example of where people, might not see that as a bad thing, but is it preventing you from being, again, that flexible, authentic, real person that truly allows you to open yourself up to more joy? Because it takes a lot of work to maintain that perfectionism. And so it's things like that I think as you start looking and as you invite people you love and who love you into this growth journey, then, you'll begin to really be able to, once you start seeing it, you can then kind of go below. And again, it's that curiosity that helps take you down through those layers.
So is thriving the end of the transformation story?
I believe it's, there's still evolution within that. So I'm still certainly a work in progress. At the same time, I live my days joyfully. I think that, I have things that come up, having written the book and having people around me, support me or not support me with the book. That brought up some stuff for me. But I can see it more clearly, and I can see it with, again, with a level of objectivity. And so, but it was important for me to sit with that and really reflect on, again, what's that about? And those were some old stuff came up, and so I worked through that. So I think I'm still probably working through layers, and I think we all will continue to work through layers to become this, there's new levels of being a thriver. But I will say that it's a much more, you do kind of arrive to this authentic level of living.
It sounds perfect. I think there's so many people that are struggling, with either abuse or trauma, one way or another, and to be able to get a place where you feel like you're your authentic self. That's just amazing.
Thank you. And that's my hope for everyone. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I created the organization. We have a survivors-to-thrivers.com website that offers blogs to encourage people to continue doing the work. Like you were saying, as you're moving from survivor to thriver, our blogs are meant to encourage as well as give you exercises and activities that you can do to continue to grow deeper. And our Instagram and Facebook, same thing. We just really want to encourage people to continue down this journey.
So if someone's looking to work with you, how can they do that? And what does that look like?
So again, the website would be a great place to start because I describe the one-on-one coaching as well as the small group retreats. So again, that's survivors, plural, to thrivers.com. And you can contact me through there, or you can email me directly, and it's Tambry at Tambry at survivorstothrivers.com. And what that looks like is first a complimentary consultation so that I can, kind of hear what you're looking for and you can get to know me a little bit. And then we would go through, and depending upon exactly what you want, I have kind of a mapped out process, and it's basically what's in the book. But it's a mapped out process to really help kind of stair step you through this healing journey.
Well, Tambry, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. And I would, one thing you and I talked about is I've developed a group growth guide that goes along with the book if people want to do a small group study around it. So they can feel free to email me, and I would be happy to send that to them.
Well, thank you, Tambry. I know our listeners will want to check that out and learn more about your work at tambryharris.com. Awaken in the Light is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and select indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.